Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Book Chat. In honor of National Poetry Month, I'm going to be talking about some collections of poetry that might interest you. In addition to that, if you're coming into the library these days, be sure to keep an eye out for some fun poetry displays we're going to be putting on and new arrivals in the collection, poetry or otherwise. We've always got new stuff coming in for everyone to enjoy. But for now, let's get started. So the first title I wanted to talk about is the Essential Dickinson, selected by Joyce Carol Oates. Of course, this is a collection of poems by Emily Dickinson, who hardly needs an introduction, one of the great American poets, particularly of the 19th century when she was alive, although she didn't get much recognition when she was alive. So this particular edition, it's a little old, but well-loved for sure, is a really solid collection of her poems, particularly her most well-known ones, selected by Joyce Carol Oates, another great writer of prose. She even writes a nice little introduction kind of talking about Dickinson's life and legacy and comparing her to other great American poets like Walt Whitman, for instance. But yeah, it's a really solid, reliable collection of her stuff. Featuring lots of her well-known poems. I'm Nobody, Who Are You? Hope is the Thing with Feathers. This World is Not Conclusion. So yeah, if you're revisiting Dickinson, or if it's your first time encountering her work, I'd say it's a pretty good primer. The next title I want to talk about is a collection of poems by Tracy K. Smith called Such Color. Tracy K. Smith was actually the Poet Laureate of the United States from 2017 to 2019. She was nominated by the current Librarian of Congress to that position. So this work is a collection of poems from her previous works, I think spanning all the way back to about 2003 up to about the present. This was my first time encountering her works. Didn't know what to expect going in, but I was just immediately struck by how vivid and sensory a lot of her poems felt. Just you felt very, very sucked in, at least I did, in the scenes that she was describing. Especially toward the beginning, I noticed there's very much a kind of kinetic energy to it. You get swept up in whatever it is that she's describing. Like no matter what it was, I was carried away. So there's dynamism there, that sort of kinetic energy, but I think she's also capable in other parts of this collection of sort of coming to a more solemn, reflective sort of place in her poetry. There are definitely lots of political currents that are carried through it that give it this kind of reaching, urgent quality. So needless to say, there's a lot going on, but it is definitely worth checking out, and I would definitely recommend it. The next collection I want to talk about is an anthology called Poetry of Presence, an anthology of mindfulness poems. So this one, unlike the other ones I selected, is a collection, of course, an anthology of poems, well over 100, I would say. I didn't get an exact count, but there are quite a few of poems that all revolve around this particular topic of mindfulness and being present. And no matter which one you choose, there are quite a few. It's a very diverse array of poems. All of them really do kind of, as you read on, you sort of realize all of them have this very like immersive, shimmering, just very life affirming qualities to them, no matter who you're reading them by. And personally, I know I usually prefer reading collections of poems by like a single poet to kind of like understand what their voice is, what their particular style is. But in this case, it's an easy exception to make. You can't really go wrong with mindfulness oriented poems. And there's really something here for everybody. You have a diverse set of voices from folks like Pablo Neruda, Mary Oliver, Alice Walker, Rumi, Thich Nhat Hanh. There really is just a lot to love here. Even if not every single poem resonates with you, there's definitely something for everybody to dig into. And finally, we have Ode by Joshua Bennett. This is his second collection of poems, I believe. Joshua Bennett is an English professor at Dartmouth College and also a Guggenheim Fellow. So in this work, of course, playing on the homophone of ode, ODE, to ode as it's spelled in the title, is a really interesting work. Definitely the most unique one, I think, that I selected for this. It becomes clear as you kind of begin to read that his style, his approach is, compared to the others, maybe a bit more abstract and kind of intricate. The text is definitely. It varies quite a bit as well. You have certain poems that are a bit shorter, just a few words per line, and then you have like dense paragraphs of text that make up a single poem. Not that those aren't worth checking out, of course. It's just there's lots of different ways of approaching poems, I think, in this one. And in terms of what he talks about, the ways that he constructs poems, what really struck me was how effectively he taps into these very little, seemingly insignificant, kind of intimate moments, memories throughout one's life, throughout his childhood, leading up to the present as an adult, and how that kind of resonates with the reader in lots of interesting ways. And there's this sort of unspoken kind of emphasis on fixing and like reconciling certain things within the context of those memories, of working through those things and trying to come to terms with things that are in need of repair, whether that's something that occurs on like a very broad kind of social historical scale, or in a much more like down to earth, intimate kind of interpersonal way. He sort of works very effectively on both of those levels, I would say. This one is definitely worth experiencing. I recommend it for sure. So those are the collections I wanted to talk about today. Hope you enjoyed watching. Like I said at the top, we have a bunch of different displays surrounding poetry that we are going to be putting up. Definitely check those out. They'll be up on our third floor. And of course, if you're interested in poetry, either these titles or anything else, check out the 800s in the nonfiction section. There's definitely something there for you, for everybody. And we would be happy to help you find whatever you're looking for. So yeah, thank you for watching and see you next time.